It is midnight on the anniversary of my wife's passing, the night I always keep a small memorial dinner ready for the family just in case they come. The clock clicks past 12 in the hallway, a metronome for a house that has learned to breathe without laughter. On the table sits an ordinary whiskey bottle, ordinary except for the thin red thread knotted around its neck, the way my wife used to tie her scarf when she needed both hands free. The knot is hers. I would know it anywhere. It shouldn't be here. I didn't put it there. I haven't bought whiskey in months. I haven't trusted my hands to pour it since the tremor started last winter. I reach for the bottle and stop. That's when I hear it, a voice from the porch, low and urgent through the cracked window. Grandpa, don't trust them tonight. The words slip in like smoke, cool and startling. I freeze my palm resting on the table, feeling the ring-shaped watermark where the bottle sweat. The porch light is off. The street is empty. The voice didn't sound like my grandson's. It sounded older, careful. I opened the door a fraction, nothing but the cicadas and the glow of the neighbor's TV. But on the door handle there's a small smear polish citrus scented, the kind my daughter uses when she cleans her piano. Personal trace, proof of a hand I know too well. 3 years of distance yawns between me and my children, a canyon carved by arguments about money, the house and the will I never changed after their mother died. We barely manage birthdays by text, but tonight is different. Tonight I invited them all for a late memorial supper, 8 p.m., their mother's favorite time to eat. The stranger's warning, the red thread on the bottle, the citrus on the handle, these are not coincidences. They are a pattern. A pattern means a plan, and a plan means danger. And that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I set the bottle back down and listen to the house. My doctor tells me older people wake more at night because REM cycles shorten with age. That's a mainstream fact, and I've learned to accept it. Sleep in small, careful pieces. Tonight, wakefulness is a shield. I wrap the red thread around my finger, testing the knot. It's the same sailor's loop my wife learned from her father, a fisherman who used red ribbon in storm seasons because he claimed red was easy for luck to find in the dark. That's a folk detail half remembered, but the knot is exact, which means someone who loved her or wanted me to think they did has been inside my kitchen. I step to the window and look at the driveway. My son's car isn't there, but the gravel shows a fresh indentation, a fading oval where a tire rested earlier this evening. They were here. Or someone was. I breathe in slow, the way my physical therapist taught me after my fall. Inhale, 4, hold 2, exhale 6. The tremor in my left hand settles to a faint tapping, like rain at the edge of hearing. Silence has its own way of speaking. I lift the bottle again and hold it to the light. The liquid is darker than the rye I used to keep for guests, almost amber brown, with a faint cloud the color of tea. No label. The cap is sealed, but the shrink band has a tiny nick. I think about how easy it is to spoof a caller ID or fake a label, ordinary tricks that feel like magic to people my age. Betrayal rarely arrives in grand gestures. It arrives as small, careful edits to the familiar. A hush drops over the street, then the softest footfall on the porch boards. I step back into the shadow by the hallway wall, counting my breaths. Whoever is out there stands very still, as if the air itself might give them away. My heartbeat knocks against my ribs. I remember the last time my son hugged me, how he smelled of cologne and impatience, and the way he said we needed to make responsible decisions about my future. Responsible decisions are often code for do what we want. That's the moral rot that scares me most, the ideas that sound caring, but hollow out your choices. The voice returns, barely louder than the leaves. Listen to me. Don't drink anything tonight. Don't sign anything. They'll bring papers. Papers. My chest tightens. In most estates, a codicil is the proper add-on to a will. I learned that after my neighbor died and her daughters fought over the antique piano. Paper can be a scalpel or a noose, depending on the hand that wields the pen. I move toward the foyer, heels whispering over the rug, and the boards answer with a soft complaint. The footsteps retreat down the porch and vanish. I stand in the doorway, the empty street laid out like a stage set. A moth bats itself against the glass, frantic, determined to reach a false moon. I whisper into the night, "Who are you?" No answer, only the cicadas and distant siren, a long, lonely thread pulling through the dark. I consider calling the police, but what would I say? An invisible stranger told me not to trust my family. The officer would nod sympathetically and write a report no one will read twice. I go back to the kitchen and run my finger along the bottle's lip cool, clean too clean. I check the back door unlocked, though I know I locked it before I went to bed. The bolt sits slightly misaligned, as if someone who didn't know the trick had forced it, then set it gently back. I feel anger rising slow, deep anger, not the kind that shouts, the kind that takes notes. Then another feeling, grief, almost a physical weight, because the only reason to warn me is that there is something real to fear. The stranger is a shadow. The danger is not. I take the bottle to the sink and set it down. The red thread catches on my thumbnail and snags. I think of my wife's hands, brown and careful, sliding ribbon through our granddaughter's braid. I remember a proverb she liked: "Trust is earned in teaspoons and lost in buckets." What a cruel thing to measure, yet tonight the math fits. I rinse the bottle thoroughly, then wrap it in a dish towel and tuck it behind the flower bin. If someone wants me to drink, they will have to ask me to fetch it. Let me watch their face. My plan is simple. I will listen more than I speak, and I will touch nothing that isn't mine. I return to the hallway and turn off the light. In the dark, every sound is larger: the refrigerator's hum, the tick of the clock, the tiny scratch of a tree branch across the gutter. I press my palm to the cool plaster and let the chill climb into my fingers. There is a love that protects and a love that possesses. I have lived long enough to tell them apart. I wish my children had too. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The morning after the warning, I try to pretend life is ordinary. I boil water for tea slice bread and set out my late wife's porcelain cups, though no one but me notices the small chip on the handle of hers. I tell myself I'm preparing for a family gathering, but the ritual feels more like staging a play, waiting for actors who may not remember their lines. Ordinary life before the storm always hides the sharpest silence. I walk through the garden, letting my hand brush the rosemary hedge. The scent rises medicinal and sharp. Doctors say rosemary can sometimes improve memory. Maybe that's why my wife planted it by the path. I stop and think of her handwriting, the way she wrote my name on every grocery list in looping strokes. That handwriting returned to me last night on the envelope I found in my coat pocket. Someone slipped it there knowing I'd find it. Someone close enough to step into my home. Inside the bottle with the red thread still rests behind the flower bin. I imagine my daughter's hand knotting that thread the way she once tied friendship bracelets for her classmates. She learned that from her mother too. But affection and deceit often wear the same skin until it's too late. That's the unbearable truth. Love can be used as a disguise. I set the table for 6. 3 years since we've all sat together, 3 years of fractured birthdays, ignored calls, and lawyers' letters. The plates gleam in the afternoon light. But in the reflection of the knife blades, I see not silver, but warning. Family dinners should bring comfort. Today they feel like negotiations. Silence lingers, and I realize silence itself has weight. It's heavier than shouting. I breathe in slowly. There is a tradition in my village that before a storm, the old men sit outside and count the seconds between lightning and thunder. They say the fewer the seconds, the closer the danger. That's how today feels like counting down to thunder. I think I'm safe in my own home, but I was wrong. The envelope rests on my desk, its paper yellowed at the edges as though it has traveled years to reach me. I run my finger along the seal, hesitant to break it. There is a faint fragrance clinging to it, lavender, the same my wife used to keep in sachets in her dresser drawer. My chest tightens. She has been gone for years, yet here is her scent as alive as ever. An ordinary envelope, yet unusual in every way. When I finally open it, the handwriting leaps at me, those loops and curves impossible to forge to my eyes. But this note is brief, unlike her usual careful letters. Just 5 words. Don't trust them. Tonight. My breath catches. Did she somehow write this long ago? Was it tucked away waiting for this moment? Or is someone playing a cruel trick with the one trace of her I cannot dismiss? I sit back listening to the tick of the old mantel clock. Experts say memory is strongly tied to scent lavender bread, baking the smell of rain on soil. Each can transport the mind instantly. This letter does more than transport. It unsettles. It feels like a bridge between worlds, like she is warning me from beyond. But reason intrudes. Handwriting can be imitated, scent can be borrowed. What cannot be faked is the feeling that someone is reaching directly into my grief and twisting it. I place the letter on the table beside the whiskey bottle, both props in a performance I do not yet understand. My hand trembles as I trace the red knot again. In old sailor lore, a red knot meant protection against storms, but here it feels like a signal, maybe even a snare. I close my eyes and think of my children. Once I believed distance was only a phase like autumn leaves that would return in spring. But 3 years without their laughter in this house has taught me otherwise. Estrangement calcifies like bone. I wonder if love can die in silence. What else can grow in its absence? Resentment? Greed. The floorboard creaks in the hallway. I'm not alone. My heart pounds and I call out softly, "Who's there?" No reply. Just the faintest shift of air like someone stepping away. My father once told me that when animals sense a predator, the forest goes silent. The silence now is absolute, and silence has its own way of speaking. I tuck the envelope back into my coat pocket and decide I must listen carefully tonight. Every word, every glance, every misplaced gesture will matter. My wife's hand, or the cruel echo of it, has given me a chance. Betrayal is no longer just a possibility. It is a certainty waiting for proof. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I sit by the window, the letter heavy in my pocket, and let my mind drift back to the last time the family gathered without tension. It was my grandson's graduation, 4 years ago, before the fights about the house, before lawyers became more familiar than neighbors. I remember the sun falling warm across the football field, his cap slightly crooked, his smile proud. We laughed that day. We ate fried chicken out of a paper box and no one argued. That memory hurts more than it heals now because it reminds me what has been lost. 3 years of silence since then. 3 years where phone calls stopped, visits dried up, and every message carried more demand than love. When my daughter last visited, she didn't bring flowers or bread. She brought a folder. "It's just paperwork, Dad," she had said, though the weight of her eyes told me it was more than that. I'd refused to sign. That was the night she walked out, slamming the door, and the sound echoed in me for weeks. The contrast between then and now is stark. The table I set today gleams with polished plates, but the air is brittle. I find myself staring at the empty chair across from mine, the one where my wife used to sit. That absence feels louder than the clock ticking in the corner. Psychologists say grief softens with time, but I think grief simply learns to disguise itself. Mine hides in the way I arrange the table, the way I polish silver. No one uses the way I replay old voices in my head just to feel less hollow. I reach for the red threaded bottle again, tracing the knot. I remember my wife teaching our children how to braid ropes during summer picnics, the sun hot, their laughter light. Those braids were symbols of unity then. Now the same knot feels like a warning twisted tight. Memory is cruel, it offers sweetness but always with a thorn. I close my eyes. A peculiar stillness settles in the house, the kind that comes before thunderstorms. My father once told me that in folk belief, if the wind dies completely before nightfall, it means someone will bring news of death. The leaves outside hardly stir. Superstition or not, the omen gnaws at me. I press my palms together and whisper a prayer I haven't spoken aloud in years. Let me see the truth clearly, whatever it is. Then I rise, straighten my shirt, and prepare for their arrival. My heart pounds not with excitement, but with dread. I thought I was ready for what tonight would bring. But I was wrong. The afternoon sun dips low, staining the curtains with a reddish glow, as if the house itself blushes with secrets it cannot hide. I hear the crunch of gravel outside, first one car, then another. They are here. My hands tighten on the arms of the chair. I tell myself I will welcome them as any father should, yet suspicion has already hollowed the words. The front door opens with voices overlapping. My son calls out, "Dad, we're here!" His tone rehearsed, too cheerful for the years of distance between us. My daughter follows with a hurried kiss on my cheek, the scent of citrus polish clinging to her hands. That same scent I found on the doorknob last night. My chest tightens. Coincidence or confirmation? At the table I watch them take their seats. Knives and forks clink softly, but their eyes betray them. They flick toward me, then toward one another, as though checking if I've noticed the silent dialogue written in glances. Psychologists say people can communicate entire strategies with nothing more than their eyes. Here, the language feels fluent and dangerous. I pour tea for myself, ignoring the whiskey bottle I've hidden. My daughter comments, "You didn't set out the rye, Dad. You always do." Her tone is light, but the edge is there. I smile faintly and say, "Not tonight." For a moment, silence spreads across the table like spilled ink. My grandson shifts in his chair, avoiding my gaze. I recall a superstition my wife used to share. If a dog howls before a meal, someone at the table carries betrayal in their heart. A dog cries faintly in the neighborhood almost on cue, and the room stiffens with unspoken tension. The sound fades, but the omen remains gnawing at the edge of my patience. As I chew my bread, I catch it, my son's hand brushing against a folded paper in his jacket pocket, subtle, almost invisible. But I see it. Paper. Contracts. The stranger's warning rings louder now. Don't sign anything. My appetite vanishes. The air feels heavy, thicker with every passing minute. It's not the clink of silverware that unsettles me, but the weight of the things unsaid. Betrayal doesn't need words to announce itself. It breathes in glances and hesitations in the way a daughter smiles too wide. Silence has its own way of speaking. Dinner begins with a toast, though it feels less like celebration and more like ceremony. My son stands, glass raised, his smile strained as if stretched too tightly over unease. To family, he says, voice a little too loud. The words echo hollow against the walls as though the house itself refuses to carry them. Everyone clinks glasses except me. I raise my tea, letting the steam curl around my face like a veil. He goes on speaking about unity, about rebuilding trust, his words practiced. But I notice how his eyes avoid mine, darting instead toward his sister, and back to the folded paper peeking slightly from his pocket. The toast is not about unity. It is about preparation, about softening the ground before planting something darker. I remember something a lawyer once told me when drafting the original We'll Watch How People Toast. A toast is often less about honoring and more about claiming. Tonight, the claim is clear. They are rehearsing ownership, preparing for me to agree to sign. The stranger's warning was not paranoia. It was prophecy. The food sits heavy in my mouth, though I barely taste it. I watch my grandson push peas around his plate, his face pale, his silence louder than the rest. Children often know more than they reveal. His unease may be guilt or fear. I recall an old custom my wife loved. When a toast was genuine, she would tie a small ribbon around her glass stem, a sailor's nod of gratitude. No ribbon tonight. Only strained smiles and the clink of hollow words. The absence stings sharper than any insult. I sip my tea slowly, pretending calm, but beneath the table my hands tremble against my knees. Anger simmers, but so does grief. How did love fracture into this? At what point did my children decide that papers mattered more than presents? The toast ends, the glasses lower, but the performance continues. My son's chair creaks as he sits, his weight shifting like a man carrying secrets. My daughter's grin lingers too long, teeth bared in something more like warning than joy. I thought I could endure their company tonight, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I excuse myself from the table, saying I need to fetch more bread from the kitchen. My legs feel heavier than usual as I rise, though I know it isn't age alone weighing me down. I move slowly, listening as I step away. Behind me, their voices drop to whispers the moment they think I'm out of earshot. That sudden hush tells me more than words ever could. In the hallway, I pause, ears straining. A murmur reaches me, low and urgent. My daughter hisses, "He hasn't touched the bottle." My son replies, "Be patient, he will." My breath catches. So it was never about the food, the toast, or the polite smiles. It was always about the whiskey. The red-threaded bottle waits behind the flour bin, hidden because of instinct. And now I know that instinct may have saved me. I lean closer to the doorframe. Their voices overlap, a web of conspiracies spun in half-sentences. Papers after dessert. Don't push too hard. He has to believe it's his choice. The words slice through me. They are plotting not only to make me drink, but to make me sign. Betrayal carried in familiar voices. A mainstream fact comes to mind, almost absurd in this moment. Doctors warn that certain medications interact fatally with alcohol. I've been prescribed heart pills, and my children know it. If they meant for me to drink, perhaps they meant for me not to wake. The realization chills me more than the draft seeping under the door. I step back, steadying myself against the wall. In folktales, my grandmother told betrayal at the table was the gravest curse. She said if someone whispered in the kitchen while bread was still warm, it meant treachery was already baked into the night. The bread on our table is still steaming. Her words echo like a warning across time. I return with the bread, my face neutral, my smile thin. They glance up too quickly, their silence louder than conversation. I set the basket down, pretending not to notice their stolen glances. But inside my heart pounds with a new truth. I'm dining with actors in a play whose ending they believe they have written. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I keep my eyes lowered, pretending to butter bread while my ears catch the faintest rustle beneath the serving tray at the far end of the table. My daughter shifts in her seat, her hand lingering too long near it as though guarding a secret. When she finally excuses herself to refill a water pitcher, I seize the moment. I lift the tray carefully, my fingers brushing against something stiff. There it is, a folded document tucked flat beneath the silver platter, no title visible, just crisp pages bound by a paperclip. I slide it closer, heart hammering, and read enough of the first line to see my name followed by codicil to last will and testament. My stomach drops. This is what the stranger warned me about. I quickly replace the tray, forcing my hands to appear steady, though inside I'm trembling. The realization strikes with terrible clarity. They mean for tonight to end not in memory or reconciliation, but in signatures that carve me out of my own life. I recall something my lawyer once told me: most families don't fracture over need, but over greed. The wealth is rarely the cause, it's the excuse. And he was right. They are circling not because I am poor, but because what I own represents the last thread binding them to patience. The room feels colder suddenly. My tea tastes metallic. I chew on bread that turns to dust in my mouth. My grandson notices my distraction and watches me with wide eyes. He says nothing, but his gaze is heavy, conflicted. Perhaps he knows. Perhaps he is caught between loyalty and fear. A memory surfaces years ago during a village festival. An elder told me a strange custom hid an unwanted truth beneath food, and it would gain power. The tongue digests lies faster than the heart, he said. I had laughed at the oddity back then. Now, with a will hidden beneath a tray of roasted lamb, the saying feels like prophecy fulfilled. I press my palm to the tablecloth, steadying myself. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with daggers. Sometimes it slides in with folded paper, waiting for ink to give it teeth. I glance at the empty chair at the table, the one no one dares fill. Its silence feels like witness and judge, and I find myself whispering in my heart, "If you're here, show me how to endure this." But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The table is full, yet one chair remains conspicuously empty. It stands at the far end, perfectly set with plate, fork, and knife, though no one has claimed it. My wife's chair. My children avoid looking at it, as if acknowledging the absence would invite her ghost. But I cannot tear my eyes away. Every family gathering since her death has carried this hollow space, and still they lay out a place setting as if by ritual. I ask softly, "Who is sitting there tonight?" My daughter glances quickly at my son, then back at me. "No one, Dad. Just tradition." Her smile doesn't reach her eyes, a lie disguised as courtesy. I know it. The setting is deliberate, meant to hold more than memory. I remember reading once that in some cultures, an empty chair represents the spirit of the dead invited to join the meal. But here it feels different, like a placeholder, as though they expect someone else to arrive. My chest tightens. Perhaps the stranger who warned me, or someone carrying the final piece of their scheme. I notice how their conversation dips whenever I look toward that chair. Words trail off, replaced by the scrape of forks. My grandson fidgets, sneaking nervous glances at the empty space. His unease is sharper than before, like he knows something but doesn't dare to speak. I sip my tea and let the silence draw longer. Silence can force confessions the way a priest's booth can. My son finally clears his throat. "It doesn't matter, Dad. Eat. You need your strength." His words sound less like care and more like command. Strength for what? To drink the whiskey. To sign the paper. A flicker of memory intrudes it, awake long ago. My grandmother warned me never to leave an empty chair at the table. The one who comes to claim it, she whispered, isn't always welcome. Back then I thought it was just another folk superstition. Tonight it feels like a premonition. The chair sits there untouched, its silverware gleaming in the dim light. More than absence, it is a threat made visible. I grip my cup tighter, watching their faces as they try too hard not to look at it. I thought the chair was only a reminder of grief. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The longer I sit at the table, the more my daughter's smile unsettles me. It stretches two wide teeth gleaming under the chandelier, as though she's wearing it like a mask that doesn't quite fit. I've seen her smile in joy, in pride, even in mischief when she was a child. This one is different. It doesn't reach her eyes. It's the smile of someone rehearsing a part in a play. She leans forward, speaking with a tone that feels sticky with charm. "Dad, it's so good we're together again. We've missed you." The words sound warm, but I notice her knuckles whitening as she grips her glass too tightly. Words and hands rarely lie the same way. One tries to soothe, the other betrays pressure. I recall a psychological study I once read. Fake smiles can be spotted because the muscles around the eyes remain still. True joy wrinkles the corners, while deceit leaves them smooth. Her face tonight is smooth as glass. The study returns to me now like a diagnosis. The breadbasket passes around again, but no one takes much. My grandson picks at crumbs, his silence more telling than any confession. My son avoids my eyes altogether, focusing instead on his knife, tracing it against the plate in slow, circular motions. The sound grates on me, a reminder of the paper hidden under the tray. My daughter's laughter suddenly fills the room, too loud, too sharp. It cuts the air like glass breaking. Folk superstition says that when laughter feels forced, it can summon misfortune. My grandmother used to warn us, beware the laugh without joy, it hides a shadow. I never believed her until now. I glance again at the empty chair. Her smile falters for half a second when she catches me staring. That slip says more than her laughter ever could. It tells me the chair is part of their plan, a stage waiting for its actor. My throat feels dry. I sip tea and the porcelain rattles faintly against the saucer, betraying the tremor in my hand. I set it down carefully, forcing calm though unease coils tighter in my chest. I thought her smile was only strange, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The knock comes so lightly at first that I almost mistake it for the wind brushing a branch against the window. But when it repeats firmer this time, every head at the table stiffens. My daughter forces another too bright laugh. My son mutters, "Ignore it." Yet my pulse quickens because I already know who it must be. I rise before they can stop me. The front door creaks as I open it, and there he stands, the stranger from last night, the one whose voice warned me not to trust. His coat is dark, his face shadowed by the porch light, but his eyes are steady, carrying the calm of someone who has already chosen sides. "Evening, sir," he says softly, just loud enough for me to hear. I thought I should check in. Behind me, my son's voice calls strained, "Dad." "Who is it?" I hesitate, torn between bringing the man in or shielding him from the storm that is my family. I notice something in his hand, a worn leather notebook, its corners frayed from years of use. He holds it like evidence, like a weapon made of truth. I step aside instinctively, and he nods once, entering the house with measured calm. The room's temperature drops when he appears in the dining doorway. My daughter's smile shatters her face, draining of color. My son grips his knife so tightly it scrapes the plate. They know him. That knowledge spreads across the table faster than any greeting. I remain silent, watching. The stranger sets the notebook gently on the table beside the untouched whiskey bottle, as if aligning two halves of a puzzle. The sound it makes is small, but it echoes like thunder. There's an old saying I once heard from a village elder. When a guest arrives uninvited and silence greets him, it means the house is guilty of something. Tonight, silence swallows the room whole. The stranger glances at me, then at my children. His eyes speak volumes, warning proof, maybe even salvation. But the weight of what he carries has not yet been revealed. I thought his return would bring clarity, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The stranger takes a seat without asking, directly beside the empty chair. His presence makes the silence unbearable, stretching longer than the space between clock ticks. My daughter tries to recover first. "You must be lost," she says with forced sweetness, but her voice wavers, betraying the tightness in her throat. He doesn't answer her. Instead, he opens the leather notebook slowly, the sound of paper rustling louder than the clink of cutlery. The pages are filled with neat writing and photocopies. He flips to a section marked with a ribbon, lays it flat on the table, and looks straight at me. "You need to see this." My son slams his palm on the table. "Enough. Dad, he's no one. Don't listen to him." His tone is sharp, commanding, too eager. That urgency reveals fear. A guilty man always rushes to silence the witness. I lean closer, but before I can read, my daughter speaks again, her voice trembling. "Dad, please. It's late. We don't need surprises." Her eyes dart to the whiskey bottle I had hidden, but now sits in plain view again. I hadn't moved it, which means someone else did. My stomach knots. The stranger closes the notebook halfway and waits, as though daring them to protest louder. No one moves. The quiet grows heavier, pressing down like a storm about to break. Psychologists say silence at a family table is often a symptom of unresolved conflict. But this isn't conflict, it's strategy. Silence is their weapon, meant to freeze me, to pressure me into choosing quickly. Yet silence can be turned back. Tonight, it is my shield. I set my hands flat on the table, feeling the vibration of my own pulse through the wood. No more whispering, I say quietly. If there's something to be said, let it be spoken here. The words hang in the air, simple but irrevocable. The stranger nods once, approving. But I notice the way my son grips the knife, white-knuckled, the metal trembling slightly against porcelain. The unspoken threat chills me more than any shouted argument. I thought the silence was suffocating, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The stranger clears his throat, then pushes the notebook closer to me. But before I can flip the page, my daughter seizes the whiskey decanter and rises with a too bright smile. "Let's drink properly, Dad. Just one toast for old times." She begins to pour the liquid, a dark amber stream catching the chandelier's light. Something feels wrong instantly. The liquid looks thicker than the rye I remember, almost syrupy. The smell, faint but sharp, drifts upward, bitter, medicinal, not the warm sweetness of whiskey. My stomach churns. Doctors warn often about counterfeit alcohol in unmarked bottles. Even a few sips can poison the blood, especially in the elderly. My heart medication would make it worse. The stranger's warning echoes, "Don't drink anything tonight." I catch my grandson's eyes as he watches the pour. His lips part slightly, like he wants to protest, but he stays silent. Fear keeps him shackled. That silence hurts me more than the lie in my daughter's smile. The stranger leans forward, voice steady. "Don't touch it." His tone cuts sharper than any blade. My son glares at him, jaw clenched. "Who are you to interfere?" His hand twitches near his pocket where the folded papers hide. My daughter sets the filled glass in front of me, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second when I don't reach for it. Folk wisdom returns. My grandmother once said, "If wine looks too dark, it's carrying more than grapes." Tonight, the saying feels like prophecy again. I leave the glass untouched, the steam of my tea rising beside it like a guardian. "I'll pass." I murmur, my voice calm, though my pulse hammers. The refusal cracks the surface. My son exhales sharply, anger barely contained. My daughter grips the decanter tighter, her knuckles pale. The stranger doesn't move. He just watches, letting the tension thicken. And in that moment, I realized the drink was never about tradition. It was a test, a trap waiting for my hand. I thought the bottle itself was the danger. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The glass of whiskey sits untouched in front of me, its dark surface reflecting the chandelier above. My daughter pushes it closer, her voice brittle. "Dad, it's just a drink. Don't make this awkward." The word awkward lands heavy, like she is scolding a child rather than speaking to her father. I fold my hands in my lap, steadying myself. I'll stick with tea. My refusal sharpens the air. My son shifts in his chair, exhaling loudly. "You're being paranoid. We came here to reconnect, to rebuild trust." His words are smooth but too rehearsed. Trust isn't built by hiding papers under trays. The stranger taps the notebook gently, breaking the rhythm of their charade. "Why don't you let him read before you keep talking?" His tone is calm but edged with authority. My daughter's mask finally cracks. She slams the decanter down so hard the table rattles. "Why are you even here?" she hisses at the stranger. The words echo around the room, the first true thing she has said all night. In that instant, truth leaks out like water through a cracked jar. Their performance is unraveling. The silence that follows is worse than shouting. My grandson stares down at his plate, but I notice his lips move slightly, whispering something. I catch it. "I'm sorry, Grandpa." My chest tightens. I remember an old proverb my wife loved. What the tongue hides, the hands reveal. My son's hand slides inside his jacket pocket, brushing the folded papers again. He means to bring them out to force the issue. The room feels colder, though no window is open. My heart beats painfully against my ribs, each thump reminding me that I am one mistake away from collapse. I think of my medication, of how a single poisoned sip could be written off as age or frailty, how betrayal can wear the mask of inevitability. I lift my eyes slowly, letting them rest on each face. My voice is steady when I speak. If there is something to be said, say it now. No more lies. The stranger doesn't move, but his presence steadies me. My children, however, exchange a glance that chills me to my bones. That look, wordless, sharp, final, carries more confession than their mouths ever could. I thought words would betray them, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The tension finally splinters. My son shoves his chair back, the legs screeching against the floor, and stands with the folded papers in hand. His face is flushed, sweat shining at his temples. "Enough of this game, Dad," he says, voice trembling with anger. "We need your signature tonight." He slaps the papers onto the table, the sound like a gavel. My daughter leans forward, her wide smile gone, her tone sharp. It's for your own good. You can't manage everything anymore. We're just protecting what's ours. The word ours slices deeper than any knife. In her eyes, nothing here belongs to me, it's already theirs. The stranger doesn't flinch. He folds his arms and waits, calm as stone. My grandson, however, whispers again, barely audible, "Don't, Grandpa." His small voice is drowned by his parents' fury, but I hear it clear as a bell. My hand hovers above the papers, though I don't touch them. The legal jargon at the top blurs before my eyes, but I recognize enough phrases like transfer of assets and medical authority. They mean to strip me of more than property. They mean to take control of my very life. I think of something my doctor once said: signing over medical authority too soon is like giving someone the key to both your house and your body. Once given, it is nearly impossible to reclaim. Tonight, my children came not to reconcile, but to capture. A memory flickers my grandmother's warning about storms. When chairs scrape and glasses rattle, betrayal is no longer brewing. It has arrived. The scrape of my son's chair still rings in my ears, proving her right. I lift my gaze slowly, letting the silence drag, forcing them to squirm. My son's hands tremble as he thrusts a pen toward me. My daughter's smile returns, but this time it is sharp, triumphant. I wrap my fingers around the pen, but I do not lower it to the page. Instead, I whisper, "If you wanted my trust, you should never have hidden the truth." My words hang heavy, pressing down on them harder than anger ever could. The stranger leans in slightly, his eyes on the documents. He knows what I have just realized. This night has reached its breaking point. I thought the confrontation would end here, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The stranger finally moves, his calm presence breaking like a blade drawn from its sheath. He pulls the leather notebook closer, flips it open, and lays a photocopy across the table. The paper lands directly on top of the documents my son had pushed at me. Before he signs anything, the stranger says evenly, "You should all see this." My children stiffen. My daughter's hand shoots out to snatch it away, but he presses his palm flat against the page, pinning it to the table. His voice is quiet, yet every word lands heavy. "This is your father's original will, untouched, filed and witnessed years ago." The blood drains from my son's face. "That's impossible," he mutters, but I can see it in his eyes, recognition, fear. The photocopy bears the unmistakable stamp of my lawyer's office. My daughter's voice cracks as she hisses, "Who gave this to you?" The stranger doesn't answer her. Instead, he turns to me. "Your wife made a codicil before she passed. She left specific instructions. I promised her I'd protect them if this day ever came." My chest seizes a wave of grief and relief crashing together. She had planned for this. She had seen it coming. The idea that her love reached beyond her death steadies me even as sorrow claws at my throat. My grandson leans forward, eyes wide, whispering, "Grandma knew." His innocence slices through the tension, reminding me of all that betrayal costs the young faith-safety childhood. I recall an old belief from my village: when someone dies with unfinished duties, they pass their burden to the living in the form of a promise. Tonight, that promise has walked back into my house in the hands of a stranger. The room is thick with silence, but it's no longer mine to carry. It's theirs. My son's jaw tightens. My daughter's hands shake. Their scheme lies bare now, their performance stripped away by one piece of paper. And yet deep inside, a voice warns me this revelation is only the beginning. Proof can expose betrayal, but it can also provoke desperation, and desperate hearts are the most dangerous. I thought the stranger's proof would end it, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The stranger slides the photocopy toward me, but his hand doesn't leave it, as if anchoring it in place. My eyes skim the words through the blur of age and shock. There in black ink is my wife's handwriting, her last codicil. My throat closes as I read the line that changes everything. "In the event of dispute, all property shall pass into a trust for our grandson until he comes of age." The room tilts. My son's chair screeches backward, his face twisted with rage. "This is a lie," he shouts, veins rising in his neck. My daughter goes pale, her mask of sweetness shattered. She stammers, "No, she wouldn't have done this, not to us." But I know the truth. My wife foresaw what I could not. She knew the fracture in our children's hearts, knew greed would rot where love should grow. And she placed her faith in innocence in the grandson now staring at the table, lips parted in disbelief. I steady my voice. She trusted the only one who hadn't learned betrayal yet. My son slams his fist against the table so hard the glasses jump. The untouched whiskey quivers, catching the light like liquid fire. A memory stirs. Years ago at the reading of my father's will, the lawyer had said, "Sometimes a hidden clause is not protection but revelation. It shows who people truly are when faced with disappointment." I see that truth alive in my son's fury and my daughter's crumbling facade. The stranger meets my gaze and nods. She asked me to keep it safe until it mattered. Tonight, it matters. The silence that follows is suffocating. My grandson finally whispers, "Grandma saved me." The words break me open inside. His innocence is the anchor in this storm, the reason she tied the red thread, left the lavender scent, sent a warning across years. I thought revealing the will would calm the storm, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. My son's face hardens, his anger turning sharp enough to cut. "This changes nothing," he growls, snatching at the documents he had brought. "You'll sign mine tonight, Father, one way or another." His voice trembles, not with doubt but with desperation. The stranger places a hand firmly on the table, barring his reach. My daughter rises too, her calm mask completely gone. "Why should he decide everything?" she cries, voice cracking. "We've waited, we've struggled while he sat in this house like a king. And now you tell us a dead woman's word matters more than us, the living." Her bitterness poisons the air, every syllable dripping with betrayal. I can barely breathe. These are my children, the ones I carried on my shoulders, the ones their mother nursed through fevers. And now they stand before me like strangers wearing familiar faces. I whisper almost to myself, "Was love ever enough for you?" Neither answers. Their silence is answer enough. I recall a legal article I once read. Coercion of an elder into signing away assets is not just immoral, but criminal. Inheritance disputes often turn siblings into adversaries, but rarely do they conspire together against the one who gave them life. Tonight, that line has been crossed. The stranger finally speaks, his voice cutting through the tension like steel. "You've revealed yourselves. Your mother protected this family's future because she saw what you would become. Don't make it worse." His calm is a blade, but desperation makes my children deaf. I glance at my grandson. His eyes shine with tears, his small fists clenched on his lap. He is the only innocent in this web, the only one untouched by greed. Folk wisdom whispers in my ear, "When the young weep for the old, the world itself trembles." His tears are more devastating than his parents' rage. My son slams the pen onto the table inches from my hand. "Sign it," he demands. My daughter leans close, whispering like venom, "If you care about peace, you'll stop fighting us." My pulse pounds in my temples. Betrayal is no longer hidden, it is bare naked, undeniable, and it pierces deeper than any blade could. I thought their greed had already reached its peak, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The sharp rap at the door interrupts the chaos. 3 knocks, firm and deliberate. My children freeze, their anger choking off mid-breath. My grandson jerks his head up, hope flashing in his eyes. The stranger doesn't move, but his gaze shifts toward the entryway, calm and certain, as if he knew this moment was coming. My son hisses, "Don't open it!" His voice is low, urgent, but edged with panic. My daughter grips the back of her chair until her knuckles turn white. That reaction alone tells me enough. Whoever waits outside is not a guest they want to see. I rise slowly, each step toward the door, echoing in the thick silence. My heart pounds, not from frailty but from anticipation. I pull the door open, and there they stand, 2 uniformed officers, their faces impassive, their presence commanding. The porch light glints off their badges. "Mr. Harris," one asks. I nod. "We received a call about possible coercion and elder abuse at this residence." His words hang heavy, each syllable striking like a hammer. Behind me I hear my daughter's sharp intake of breath, my son's curse muttered under his breath. The stranger finally speaks from the dining room, his tone even I called them. It was time. My mind reels. Inheritance disputes rarely reach the attention of police, but I recall reading that when there's suspicion of coercion or forged documents, officers intervene to protect the vulnerable. Tonight I am the vulnerable one, and yet in this moment I feel stronger than ever. I step aside, letting the officers in. My children erupt, voices overlapping in protests, excuses, accusations. My son's anger spills into threats, my daughter's pleas into practiced tears. The officers remain unmoved, their notebooks out, their questions sharp. A memory surfaces. My wife once told me justice arrives late, but when it does, it knocks loud enough for all to hear. Tonight, her words live again. The officer's presence shifts the air completely. The balance of power has tilted, and for the first time in years, I am not the one on trial. My children are. I thought their betrayal was the climax, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The officers step into the dining room, their boots heavy on the floorboards, and the room transforms instantly. My son, who only moments ago barked orders at me, shrinks back in his chair, his voice stumbling into excuses. This is just a family dinner. Misunderstanding, that's all. My daughter clutches her napkin like a lifeline, her eyes darting between the documents and the untouched whiskey glass. One officer picks up the folded papers and scans the first page. His brow furrows. Transfer of assets, medical proxy. He glances at me. Did they pressure you to sign this? My throat tightens, but I manage to nod. My daughter gasps, her mask slipping. Dad, no? We were only trying to help you. The second officer lifts the whiskey decanter, uncaps it, and sniffs. His expression hardens. This doesn't smell right. He pours a few drops into a glass, swirls it, then sets it down with deliberate care. We'll take this for testing. My son leaps up. You can't just... The officer cuts him off sharply. Sit down. The stranger remains quiet, his calm presence steady as stone. I realize now he has orchestrated this moment not to humiliate, but to protect. His eyes meet mine, and in them I see the echo of my wife's promise. You won't face this alone. My grandson finally speaks, his small voice trembling but clear. They wanted him to drink it. His confession is like a knife cutting the last threads of pretense. The officers exchange a look, then jot notes briskly. My daughter covers her face with her hands. My son sinks lower in his chair, fury and fear battling on his face. I recall a statistic I once read. Elder abuse is most often committed by family members hidden behind walls of silence. Tonight, the silence has shattered. The truth is out, undeniable, heavy as the air in this room. The officers turn to me. We'll need your statement. I nod slowly. My hands trembling, not from weakness, but from release. For years I carried suspicion in silence. Tonight I'm allowed to speak. I thought exposure would bring peace, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The house feels hollow once the officers finish their questions. My son and daughter sit in stunned silence, their masks shattered, their authority gone. The stranger has withdrawn to the corner, quiet as a sentinel, while my grandson clings to his chair. Small hands gripping the edges as though holding the world steady. The air itself feels different. The weight of betrayal hangs thick, heavier than the smoke of any fire. My daughter finally breaks, her voice trembling. Dad, please. We didn't mean, she falters, the words crumbling into nothing. My son snarls. Don't bother, he's already chosen his side. I stare at them, my chest aching with more than age. For years I feared death. Tonight I fear something worse, the living death of watching your children turn into strangers. I wonder, what do you call family when their love corrodes into greed? A memory claws its way forward. Years ago at a funeral, the minister said, after a storm, the wreckage shows what was fragile all along. Looking at them now, I see it. The storm of this night has stripped away the illusion that we were whole. The officers warn them about legal consequences and step outside to make calls. The moment the door closes, silence surges back. My son's fists clench. My daughter stares at the tablecloth like it holds absolution. My grandson's whisper breaks the stillness. Grandpa, I'm sorry. The innocence in his apology crushes me. He has nothing to apologize for. It is the burden of children to carry the cracks their parents create. The stranger finally speaks again, his voice low, steady. The truth is out now. What you do with it will decide everything that comes next. His words are not comfort, they are judgment. I glance at my children. For the first time I see not just betrayal, but the aftermath, the wreckage of trust, the shrapnel of greed. And it strikes me that exposure is not the end of betrayal, it is only the beginning of reckoning. I thought the worst was already behind us, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The door clicks shut after the officers leave, their silhouettes fading into the night. Inside, the silence is unbearable. My son paces like a caged animal, his fists clenched. My daughter sits stiffly, her hands pressed together as if in prayer, though her eyes are dry. The stranger remains steady in the corner, his gaze fixed on me. My son finally explodes. You ruined everything, Dad. His voice cracks under the weight of his fury. Do you know what we've sacrificed, what we could have had if you just signed? His words hit me harder than any blow. Not love, not family, but what we could have had. Wealth has replaced affection in his heart. My daughter's voice is quieter but sharper. We were only trying to secure our future. You've lived your life. Why can't you let us live ours the way we want? The accusation slices through me, leaving behind a hollow ache. I steady myself with slow breaths. I recall something my doctor once told me. Deep breathing can slow the heart, ease the surge of blood when anger rises. I cling to that advice now, not for health, but to keep from collapsing under the weight of betrayal. The stranger steps forward, his presence commanding without force. Enough, he says softly, though his words cut like iron. You've shown your true faces tonight. What remains is choice. Do you descend further, or do you stop here? A folk memory returns my grandmother's tale of the family that quarreled over gold until their voices were so loud they summoned wolves from the woods. The wolves only devour what is already broken, she used to say. Looking at my children, I feel that truth. The wolves are already here, and they wear familiar faces. My grandson finally breaks his voice, small but piercing. Grandpa, don't give them anything. His words are not just plea but shield. Innocence becomes courage when it is spoken aloud. I raise my head slowly. You've taken enough tonight. You will take no more. My words are not shouted. They are steady, final. My son slams his hand against the wall, his rage shaking the frame of the family portrait hanging there. My daughter whispers, "You'll regret this." I thought the confrontation had ended, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The storm has broken fully now, though no rain falls outside. It rages inside these walls in the eyes of my children, in the weight pressing on my chest. My son slumps back into his chair, breathing hard, while my daughter hides her face in her hands. The stranger remains still, but his calm feels like a mirror held up to their fury. I do not shout. I do not weep. Instead, I let the silence settle, filling the cracks between us like slow-moving water. You think I am weak, I say softly. But weakness is not silence. Weakness is choosing betrayal over love. My son scoffs, bitter and raw. You'll die, clinging to nothing. His words should wound, but instead they sharpen something inside me. My hand drifts to the red thread I keep in my pocket, knotted from the whiskey bottle. My wife's knot, her warning, her love stitched into a single loop of string. I hold it up between my fingers. Do you see this? They glance at it, confused, annoyed. Your mother tied this knot years ago. It was meant for storms at sea. She knew storms always came, and she trusted me to hold the line. My voice steadies as I speak, a strength I didn't know remained in me. The stranger nods, silent approval in his eyes. My grandson leans closer, whispering, "Grandpa, keep it. His faith is my anchor." There's a belief in our village that when someone smiles calmly in the face of danger, it curses their enemies with the weight of their own shame. I don't know if it's true, but tonight I believe it, because I feel no fear, only clarity. I fold the knot carefully and tuck it back into my pocket. You cannot take what isn't yours. Not my house, not my will, not my dignity. The words land heavier than fists. My children avert their eyes, their silence now an admission. They came for power, but left with mirrors reflecting only themselves. I thought victory would taste sweet, but in truth, it is silent, heavy, and cold. Dawn bleeds softly through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. The storm of voices has gone. My children left in silence, their footsteps heavy with defeat. Only my grandson lingers, his small hand wrapped around mine, and the stranger still watchful, though his presence feels less like intrusion now and more like protection. The house is quiet, yet it carries echoes of the night, the slammed fists, the cracked smiles, the whispered plots. I sit in that quiet, letting it settle into me. Grief and betrayal weigh heavy, but so does relief. The truth has been spoken. The masks have fallen. There is no going back. I think of my wife, of the lavender scent, the red knot, the codicil she left hidden, like a seed planted for this moment. She trusted me to endure and trusted our grandson to inherit not only what we built, but also the lesson of last night. Love without honesty becomes poison. My heart aches, but not from fear, from clarity. Family is not guaranteed by blood. It is proven by choice. My children chose greed. My grandson chose love. And the stranger, perhaps guided by her hand, chose to honor a promise that saved me. Outside, the first bird calls a fragile note rising into the morning. It reminds me of another folk saying my grandmother passed down. After betrayal, the world begins again at sunrise. I believe it now. This dawn is a beginning, not an end. I turn to my grandson and squeeze his hand gently. We'll be all right, I tell him, though my voice breaks with the weight of everything behind us. He nods, trusting me in a way his parents no longer do. That trust is enough to carry me forward. The stranger finally closes his notebook and stands. My promise is kept, he says quietly, then steps toward the door, fading into the light. I do not stop him. Some people are meant to arrive only when most needed. I breathe deeply, the air cool and new. Justice has come not with triumph but with reckoning. Forgiveness may one day follow, though not today. Today there is only reflection and the fragile hope of peace. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.